The night was supposed to be a celebration, a luxury gala in New York, filled with the city's most powerful people. She walked in. Amara Holt, black, brilliant, the CEO everyone respected, except one rich young man. Charles Whitford Jr., drunk on money and ego, thought he could humiliate her in front of the world. He poured wine on her dress, laughed at her. His parents laughed too. But she didn't scream. She didn't fight back. She just watched. And the next morning, she turned the tables. A $800 million deal? Gone. Stocks dropped. Sponsors panicked. And one arrogant family learned what happens when you underestimate her. New York City glowed beneath the night sky. 1,000 lights shimmering against the glass walls of the Empire Club rooftop. The air carried a soft chill, the kind that made people pull their shoulders back and straighten their posture. Tonight was the annual Future Leaders Charity Gala. It was the type of event where every handshake had a hidden motive and every smile carried a price tag. A smooth jazz band played near the balcony while donors, investors, and influencers drifted from table to table. Photographers clicked non-stop. Waiters glided through the crowd with trays of sparkling glasses. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Polished, controlled, designed to impress. Then she arrived. Amara Holt, age 38, CEO of Holt Tech Industries. A woman known in the business world for her discipline, intelligence, and the calm authority she carried into every boardroom. As she stepped out of the elevator and onto the rooftop, the noise changed. Conversations softened. Heads turned. People who had been pretending to be important suddenly remembered who the real leader in the room was. Amara did not chase attention. It simply followed her. She wore a black evening gown, simple but commanding, paired with silver earrings that sparkled under the rooftop lights. Her hair was tied neatly, her posture steady, and her eyes sharp. She walked with the confidence of someone who had earned every victory with work, not privilege. Several guests approached her immediately. "Miss Holt, it is an honor. Your keynote speech last year still inspires my team. Congratulations on the new expansion." Amara smiled politely. She shook hands, offered warm but brief responses, and moved forward through the crowd. She had attended hundreds of events like this, but something about tonight felt different, heavier, as if the air itself was waiting for a storm to form. Across the room, a wealthy white couple stood beside the bar. Richard Whitford and his wife Eleanor, owners of one of the largest energy corporations in the country. They were smiling at Amara from a distance, but their eyes did not match their smiles. There was a coldness there, a narrow kind of pride that watched her success like a threat. At their side stood Charles Whitford Jr., their only son, a young man already famous for the wrong reasons. Tabloid fights, nightclub scandals, a temper and an ego built on money he did not earn. He looked at Amara from the bar and smirked before sipping his drink. They had not forgotten that the woman walking the room tonight was the one negotiating an $800 million deal with their company. A deal that could shift the future of renewable energy in the United States. A deal that placed her in a position they never expected a black woman to hold. Amara felt their eyes on her. She had felt this kind of gaze before. The polite hostility, the silent judgment. But she kept moving, greeting supporters, speaking to young entrepreneurs, and focusing on the purpose of the evening. Still, somewhere inside her, a faint tension settled. A quiet signal. A warning that tonight would not end the way she expected. The rooftop lights continued to shine bright, but for a moment they felt colder. Charles Whitford Jr. was already on his third glass of champagne, and the night had barely started. At 26, he was known more for his reckless behavior than any real achievement. The future heir of the Whitford conglomerate, but in reality, he lived like a bored son of privilege. His confidence came from his last name, not from anything he had earned. He stood near the bar, surrounded by three of his friends, all of them dressed in expensive suits, laughing too loudly at jokes that were not funny. Charles had a way of turning every moment into a performance. He needed attention the way some people needed air. He leaned forward and tapped his glass with a spoon to get his friend's attention. "Watch this! I am about to show you the real star of this place." His friends followed his gaze. Their eyes landed on Amara Holt, moving through the room with the quiet authority of someone who did not need to prove anything. She was speaking to a group of donors, maintaining her calm smile while answering questions about Holtec's new programs. Charles snorted. That is the woman everyone keeps worshiping, the Queen of Tech, the miracle CEO. He rolled his eyes and lowered his voice, then added something racist and insulting about her success, suggesting she survived on luck instead of talent. His friends burst into laughter even though it was not funny. It was the kind of laugh people use when they want to stay in the good graces of someone wealthy. One friend elbowed the other and whispered, "At least she dresses well." Charles smirked and followed it with another sexist remark, mocking her leadership and her presence at the gala. The group laughed again, louder this time. Nearby guests glanced over, sensing the negative energy radiating from the corner of the room. A couple quietly moved away. A waiter stiffened, unsure whether to approach or avoid the area. Charles lifted another glass from a passing tray and drank it in one long swallow. His cheeks were flushed and his grin was growing sharper. He watched Amara like she was not a CEO but a target. Someone he wanted to embarrass just to prove he could. Someone he wanted to knock down because her confidence threatened him. His friends kept hyping him up, unaware of the storm he was about to trigger. Or maybe they knew and simply wanted front row seats. High above the city, under the bright rooftop lights, the party continued. But the tension around Charles Whitford Jr. had begun to rise, and trouble was already forming behind his drunken smile. The music softened as more guests gathered near the center of the rooftop. A wave of whispers spread from table to table, like a quiet electric current. Did you hear? Holtec and Whitford Corp are signing a $800 million deal tomorrow. It is the biggest renewable energy partnership of the year. Some guests nodded with excitement. Others reacted with surprise. A few looked uneasy, as if they sensed the weight of the alliance. This was not just a business deal. It was a major shift in the energy sector. A shift that would place Amara Holt and the Whitford Empire under the same spotlight. Near the balcony, Richard and Eleanor Whitford listened to the murmurs with a practiced smile. They looked polished, confident, and proud, as if the entire evening was built around their success. Richard adjusted his cufflinks while scanning the room with the air of someone who believed he owned every floor. In the building, Eleanor sipped her champagne and held her chin high. They appeared supportive, but their expressions changed slightly whenever someone mentioned Amara Holt. A quick tightening of the lips, a brief glance exchanged between them. It was subtle, almost invisible to a casual observer, but real. They liked the deal. They liked the money, but they did not like that the power in the room tonight tilted toward a black woman who had climbed without privilege. Standing not far from them, two investors whispered quietly, "Richard must be relieved. Holtec is carrying most of the innovation in this partnership. Yes, and Amara is the one driving the negotiations. She has the final word tomorrow morning." Eleanor heard it. Her smile faded before she forced it back into place. On the other side of the rooftop, Charles Whitford Jr. was still laughing loudly with his friends, completely unaware of the responsibility that rested on his family. His parents noticed his behavior, exchanged a quick look, then returned their attention to the guests, as if nothing was wrong. But something was wrong. Amara moved through the crowd with calm confidence. Unaware of the storm the Whitford family was silently brewing. She was the reason this deal existed. She was the one who had convinced multiple agencies, investors and engineers to push the project forward. Yet she could feel a pressure in the air, a shift, a tension that settled between the families like a fragile bridge waiting to crack. Above the city, the whispers continued. The excitement grew, and the stakes climbed higher with every passing minute. The night was reaching its peak. Music played softly, glasses clinked, and conversations blended into a smooth background hum. Amara stood near the center of the rooftop, speaking with a group of environmental donors. Her posture was relaxed, her voice steady, and her focus fully on the mission of the charity event. Behind her, Charles Whitford Jr. spotted his moment. His friends nudged him. "Go on, do something." Charles grinned, fueled by alcohol and ego. He pushed away from the bar and began walking toward Amara with a careless swagger. As he approached, a few people instinctively stepped aside, sensing trouble. Charles did not slow down. He pretended to check his phone, pretending not to see Amara at all. Then he bumped into her shoulder. The impact was sharp but controlled. Anyone else might have apologized. Charles did not. Amara turned slightly, meeting his half-lidded eyes. "Excuse me," she said calmly. Charles smiled in a way that was not a smile at all. He lifted a fresh glass of red wine from a passing tray. His friends watched from a distance, whispering. Then, without warning, he held the glass above her gown. Time slowed for the crowd around them. Amara remained still, her breath quiet. Charles tilted the glass. A dark stream of wine poured out, staining the front of her dress. It spread across the fabric like a deliberate mark. Gasps erupted around the room. A few guests covered their mouths in shock. One waiter dropped a tray. Amara did not move backward. She did not shout. She simply stood there, letting the wine fall, letting the moment reveal exactly who he was. Charles lowered the empty glass with a smug grin. Across the rooftop, Richard and Eleanor Whitford watched the scene unfold. Instead of stepping in, instead of calling out their son, they exchanged a tiny laugh. It was quiet, controlled, and filled with the same dismissive pride they had carried all night. People around them whispered in horror. Did he really just do that? To her. To the CEO they are signing with tomorrow. Amara finally took a small breath. Her eyes rose to meet Charles. There was no anger in her gaze. No panic, only a calm, sharp clarity. A silent message that carried more weight than any words. Noted. Every single thing. Charles smirked again, thinking he had won. But the rooftop felt colder now. And everyone who understood power knew something had shifted in Amara Holt. For a long moment, no one spoke. Red wine dripped from the hem of Amara Holt's gown, falling onto the rooftop tiles in small drops. The music had not fully stopped, but it felt distant now, like it was playing underwater. Every eye in the room was on her, waiting for a reaction that never came. Amara looked down at the stain, then lifted her gaze slowly. Charles Whitford Jr. stood in front of her, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk carved across his face. His friends pretended to admire the city view, but their nervous glances betrayed them. Guests at nearby tables watched with disbelief, frozen between wanting to help and wanting to stay out of trouble. Most people expected outrage. They expected raised voices, security stepping in, or a direct confrontation that would shake the rooftop. But Amara did not give them any of that. She simply straightened her shoulders. Her expression became calm, too calm. The kind of calm that made a few older business leaders stiffen in their seats. They knew this kind of silence. The silence of a strategist. The silence of someone who made decisions without announcing them. Amara looked once more at Charles. He lifted his chin proudly, still unaware of the mistake he had just made. To him, this was a joke. A small humiliation. Something he believed she would shrug off because his last name was powerful, enough to erase consequences. Amara turned away from him. She took one step, then another. The crowd parted in front of her like they were afraid to touch the air around her. A waiter rushed forward, offering a cloth. She gave him a gentle nod of thanks, but did not stop walking. Her heels tapped against the floor in a slow, steady rhythm that echoed louder than any argument could have. That rhythm carried a message that only the sharpest minds understood. She was finished with the party. She was finished entertaining disrespect. And she was finished pretending that silence meant weakness. Near the bar, Richard and Eleanor Whitford watched her leave. Eleanor lifted a hand to cover a faint smile of amusement. Richard whispered something under his breath, dismissing the moment as unimportant. But a few people nearby exchanged uneasy glances. They knew what Amara Holt was capable of. They had seen her negotiate billion-dollar deals. They had watched her turn failing companies into leading innovators. And now, they watched her walk out of the gala without a single word. That silence did not show defeat. It showed calculation, and it scared the few people wise enough to understand what was coming next. The Whitford mansion glowed under warm golden lights, a sharp contrast to the cold silence that had settled over the rooftop gala earlier. The family dining hall was massive, decorated with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and expensive art lining every wall. It was the kind of place designed to remind anyone who entered that the Whitfords were wealthy, powerful, and untouchable, or so they believed. Charles Whitford Jr. walked in first, still buzzing with drunken pride. He tossed his blazer onto a couch and laughed, loudly as if he had just won a championship. His cheeks were flushed, his steps unsteady, and his voice carried through the hallway. "Did you see her face?" I shut her down. She walked out like she had nothing to say. From the dining table, Eleanor Whitford raised her glass of wine and smiled. Her expression was soft but filled with a quiet sense of superiority. Richard sat beside her, reading a message on his phone, but he looked up when he heard Charles brag again. "Relax, son. She will be back tomorrow. People like her do not walk away from deals like ours," Richard said, waving his hand like he was brushing away dust. Eleanor nodded. She dabbed her lips with a napkin and added, "Honestly, I thought she would cause a scene, but the way she left was almost funny. She acted like she was above it." Charles laughed again, louder this time. That silence was her admitting defeat. She knows her place. The family chuckled together, comfortable in their misunderstanding of the situation. They mistook dignity for weakness. They mistook restraint for fear. They mistook Amara's silence for surrender. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. In her penthouse across the city, Amara Holt sat at her desk reviewing a folder she had created months earlier. Inside were notes, reports, witness accounts, and small but undeniable examples of the Whitfords' disrespect during negotiations. Comments they made when they thought no one was listening. Decisions made behind closed doors. Patterns of behavior she had documented carefully, quietly, patiently. She had not reacted at the gala because she was never the type to lash out. She acted with precision, with control, with timing. Back at the mansion, Charles lifted his glass high as if he had conquered an empire. To tomorrow, to the contract, to showing her who owns this industry. His parents clinked glasses with him, but the celebration was hollow. The victory was false, and the storm they were laughing about was already rising against them. The next morning, the top floor of Whitford Corp buzzed with excitement. The entire executive team had arrived early, dressed in their sharpest suits. Assistants prepared fresh coffee. Photographers arranged their equipment. A long conference table was lined with microphones and glossy folders, each marked with Holt Tech and Whitford Corp logos. This was supposed to be the biggest press event of the year, a $800 million partnership, a bold step toward the future of renewable energy. Richard Whitford walked into the boardroom with a confident smile. Eleanor followed, wearing a pearl necklace and the same quiet pride she carried at the gala. Charles entered last, trying to act serious even though he was slightly hungover. Reporters waited outside the glass doors. Cameras were already in place. Everything was ready, except one thing. Amara Holt was not there. Richard checked his watch and frowned. "She is late." "That is strange for her." An executive shifted nervously. "Sir, her team said she will not be joining in person." Charles laughed under his breath. "Maybe she is still embarrassed." Before Richard could respond, the elevator doors opened. Two members of Holt Tech's legal team stepped out. Their expressions were calm and unreadable. They walked to the head of the table and placed a sealed envelope directly in front of Richard. "This is from Miss Holt," one of them said. "She asks that you read it before proceeding." Confusion spread across the room. Eleanor exchanged a look with her husband. Charles leaned forward with a smirk. Richard opened the envelope. The room went silent. The first page was a contract termination letter, typed clearly, signed by Amara herself, effective immediately. The partnership between Holt Tech and Whitford Corp was canceled. There was no negotiation, no delay, no warning. Richard felt the color drain from his face. Eleanor grabbed the next set of documents. They were photos, high-resolution images taken at the gala. Charles holding the wine glass. Charles pouring it over Amara. Charles laughing. Guests reacting in shock. His parents smiling in the background. Then came the videos, short but clear. The entire insult captured from multiple angles. Charles froze. His smirk vanished as if someone had wiped it off his face. Reporters outside the room watched through the glass walls, sensing trouble. The executives whispered in panic. Cameras clicked even though nothing had begun. Richard slammed the folder shut. This cannot be real. But it was real. Amara Holt had spoken, and her silence the night before had turned into a decision that shook the entire Whitford empire. The fallout began faster than anyone expected. The moment Holt Tech confirmed the termination letter, news outlets picked it up. By midday, the story spread from local stations to national business channels. Reporters were calling, producers were requesting interviews, and multiple networks ran the headline in bold red banners. Whitford Corp suffers sudden collapse after failed $800 million deal. Sources confirm disrespect towards CEO at Gala event. Within hours, the stock price plunged 18%. Phones rang non-stop across the trading floor as analysts scrambled to understand the damage. Investors demanded answers. Financial advisors tried to calm clients, but panic was already rolling in. Outside the Whitford building, a sea of reporters gathered with cameras lifted high. Is it true your son humiliated Amara Holt? Why was the deal canceled? Do you deny the video evidence? Eleanor tried to leave through the front entrance, but the swarm blocked her path. Microphones pushed toward her face. She forced a tight smile, whispering no comment before security rushed her back inside. Richard stared at his phone, watching millions disappear from the company valuation in real time. His hands shook. He tried calling Amara, but her office sent a simple automated reply. Holtec does not comment on terminated contracts. Meanwhile, social media turned the incident into a storm of outrage. Hashtag CEO disrespected at Gala. Hashtag Winegate. Hashtag stand with Amara. Videos from the rooftop spread everywhere. People paused frames to analyze every detail. Charles pouring wine. Guests gasping. His parents smiling. The internet needed no more explanation. Comments flooded in. Unacceptable behavior. Good for her for walking out. A $800 million decision made with dignity. Sponsors pulled out. 3 major brands withdrew from Whitford projects within the first afternoon. A foreign investor canceled a long-pending expansion plan. Lawyers warned that the board might pursue liability if the losses continued. By evening, the Whitford board called an emergency meeting. Executives stormed into the room, waving papers and shouting. Some demanded Charles be removed from all corporate positions. Others blamed Richard and Eleanor for encouraging the arrogance that caused this disaster. Inside the mansion, Charles paced back and forth, panicking now for the first time. He kept repeating it was just a joke. She should not have taken it seriously. But the truth was unavoidable. One insult cost them $800 million. One incident destroyed their reputation, and the world had finally seen who the Whitfords truly were. Charles Whitford Jr. sat slumped in the leather armchair of the mansion study. The room was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic outside and the faint ticking of the grandfather clock. The magnitude of the morning had finally reached him. The $800 million deal was gone. The videos were viral. His reputation had collapsed in hours. He picked up his phone and dialed Amara's number. His hand trembled. "Please," he whispered to himself. "Pick up. Pick up." The line went straight to voicemail. Charles tried again. Same result. Her office blocked his calls. No one would respond. The CEO he had humiliated had erased him from her world. For the first time, he realized that money and privilege could not protect him from consequences. He stood and paced, each step heavier than the last. He imagined the boardroom, the reporters, the tweets, the comments analyzing every detail of his actions. He had laughed at her the night before, but now the laughter was gone. It was replaced with dread. Richard Whitford, his father, was called into an emergency corporate session that morning. Minutes later, Charles learned that Richard had been forced to step down from his board position. The father who had taught him arrogance and entitlement had paid a price too. Eleanor Whitford, his mother, received countless calls from charity partners and sponsors. One by one, they cut ties. Events she had planned for months were canceled. Invitations rescinded. The image she had cultivated for decades was unraveling faster than she could speak. Even Charles's friends stopped returning messages. They no longer wanted to be associated with his failure. Social media had humiliated him. Every text, every call, every email he sent was ignored. He felt smaller than he had ever felt. He sat back down in the chair and ran his hands over his face. For years, he had believed that wealth and his last name would protect him from any mistake. For the first time ever, he understood that actions had consequences. That disrespect, arrogance, and entitlement were not invisible. Charles looked at the mansion walls, the art, the chandeliers. Everything that had once felt untouchable now felt hollow. He whispered under his breath, "I am finished." And in that quiet realization, he understood the weight of what he had done. Not just the money lost, not just the humiliation, but the respect he could never reclaim. Months later, the skyline of New York City glittered like a field of stars. On a rooftop overlooking the river, Amara Holt stood with calm authority. The wind played gently with her hair, her black suit sharp against the glowing city. She held a pen poised above a contract on a sleek glass table. The rival firm executives stood around her, their faces a mixture of respect and excitement. This was bigger than the previous deal. Smarter, cleaner, $900 million for a renewable energy project that would make headlines for years. Amara read the final clause one last time. Every word was precise, every detail accounted for. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She had built this empire on discipline, intelligence, and patience. And she knew that no setback, no insult, no arrogance from others could derail her focus. She signed the contract. The pen clicked against the paper. A few executives exchanged subtle nods. The deal was complete. A reporter stepped forward, microphone in hand. She had been following the story of the Whitford fiasco and the Gala incident. "Why walk away from Whitford?" she asked. Amara smiled slightly, a calm smile that carried both warmth and steel. "Because respect is worth more than money." The words landed like a quiet thunder. Everyone around her understood that she had never been motivated by vanity or fear. Her choices were deliberate, guided by principle. She looked over the city. Skyscrapers reflected the rising sun, the streets busy with life far below. The river sparkled. Helicopters passed in the distance. The city moved and thrived, but here on this rooftop, Amara felt a quiet victory. Cameras captured her silhouette against the glowing skyline. The light highlighted her confident posture. The wind carried the faint hum of energy, a city alive and moving. She was at the center of it all, not by force, not by chance, but by power earned and decisions made with precision. The executives quietly packed up, leaving her a moment alone on the rooftop. She took a deep breath, absorbing the view. Every challenge had a lesson. Every insult had a response. And every victory had its price. The camera slowly zoomed out. New York spread endlessly beneath her, alive and shimmering. Amara Holt stood firm, a force to be reckoned with. Her journey, her triumph, and her dignity were impossible to ignore. She did not need to yell. She did not need to prove herself. The world had already seen. And with that, she turned and walked confidently toward the edge, ready for the next challenge. The city lights reflected her strength, glowing brighter than ever.